Good morning, everybody. Ryan Thomas live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on Spreaker.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Everywhere. You can like the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. Follow me on Instagram at Ryan Thomas Take. And you can also subscribe to the Spotify channel. Follow me on Spotify. And it's on any and all platforms. Any and all platforms. The major platforms, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast is available. I always start off the show with that because I want to let people know where they can find the podcast. It is Sunday morning, July 21st, 2019. And originally, I was not planning on coming on today to do a podcast, but I had to. I had to talk about last night's fight between Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman. And before I do that, I want to let you guys know as well, next week on the show, I will be joined by Kyle Hughes of Trainwreck Sports, another guest from that brand, Trainwreck Sports. This train never stops over at Trainwreck Sports. Kyle Hughes will join me next week. Josh Rest joined me last Wednesday. There will not be a Wednesday show this week. There will not be any Thomas Take Sports Podcast on Wednesday. I'm going to Toronto with my dad on a baseball trip. We're going to take in the Blue Jays and the Indians. I'll probably be posting stuff on social media, of course, as I always do. I'm pretty active on there, but no actual podcast. I'll be going to the game. I want to enjoy it, and I want to, take a few days off. I've been pretty burned out, not just podcasting. I could never get burned out from podcasting, but work life and just the daily rigmarole of life. I want to enjoy myself a little bit, kick back with a few Molson Canadians, and and have a good time. So just letting you guys know, if you guys are expecting a show on Wednesday, as of now, there will not be a show on Wednesday. I'm going to roll this over into next Sunday, and you can expect a lot more Sunday and Wednesday shows per usual beyond July 28th as we kick into gear here for training camp. Unfortunately for Buffalo Bills training camp this season, there are so few practices available for the fans to attend, which I think is really really a sign of things to come. And if you're not catching my drift there, I don't think the Bills will be at St. John Fisher much longer. They got a year this year and next year left, I believe, on the deal. Could be wrong on that. Could be through 2021, but regardless, 2-3 years left. And I think beyond that, they won't be conducting training camp at St. John Fisher anymore. And that might be for the best. So all that being said, we got to dive into the subject matter. Manny Pacquiao fought Keith Thurman last night. And when this bout was originally announced, just to take you guys back through my thought process as a boxing fan, as a quote-unquote podcaster, analyst, whatever you want to call me, I thought that this fight was a very interesting fight, and it showed that Manny Pacquiao has a massive chip on his shoulder. For Manny Pacquiao, at the age of 40 years old, to take on the test of a younger fighter, a powerful fighter, a durable fighter, at 147 pounds in Keith Thurman, undefeated champion of the sport. This was a huge test in the eyes of many for Manny Pacquiao. But for myself, I saw this as an opportunity for Manny Pacquiao to prove that he is still one of the best in the world. His name does not deserve to lose its luster. His name does still have a lot of shine and holds a lot of weight in the sport. And for all the people that wrote these articles, wrote these, basically slam pieces on Manny Pacquiao, who was taking a quote-unquote huge risk, which was an article I saw in the New Yorker. They were saying that Manny Pacquiao was taking a massive risk taking on this fight, and that it was a huge mistake, and that what is he doing? Is he broke? Is he this? The amount of disrespect in my opinion, that was shown to Manny Pacquiao prior to this fight was so alarming and so perplexing. I haven't seen anything like it in boxing. As far as recently, someone being doubted that much outside of Andy Ruiz. But I'm talking about Andy Ruiz, rightfully so, deserved to be doubted. There was a lot of questions about the guys that he had fought, the padded record. Anthony Joshua's won 4 world heavyweight titles, so there was reason to doubt that. But I ask you guys this. I want to ask the audience this simple question: why was Manny Pacquiao doubted? Why? What reason can anybody give me in the history of Manny Pacquiao's career that would prove that he should be doubted? Don't give me his age. Everyone knows his age. Everyone can look up his age and see that the guy is 40 years old, more like 40 years young on this earth, and that he's a little older. Everyone knows that. But for the elite of the elite, as I like to say, the elite of the elite, meaning that there is a true 1% exception, and within that 1%, there is a 0.0001% of the elite, guys that can maintain their peak physical performance and compete at a high level. Guys like Uriah Faber in the sport of MMA. He just rattled off a win over Ricky Simone. I just talked about it last week on the Thomas Take Sports podcast. Manny Pacquiao, 40 years old. He rattles off a dominant win over Keith Thurman. Over 12 rounds, dominant victory. But those are the exceptions. Those are not 40-year-old athletes. Those are 40-year-old athletes. Those are peak performance athletes disguised as 40-year-old gents. And those are what I like to call the elite of the elite. You're not going to see another Uriah Faber. You're not going to see another Manny Pacquiao. You're not going to see another Bernard Hopkins. You're not going to see another George St. Pierre, just to, kind of volley both mixed martial arts and boxing back and forth here, just to show, the comparisons here. They're one and the same. Although it's MMA and although it's boxing, two completely different facets within combat sports, you are not really overstepping it by comparing those fighters to one another, because they are the peak physical conditioned athletes that can maintain their peak physical capacity. And I truly appreciate that, because on one hand, you got these guys that are willing to doubt Manny Pacquiao. And then on the other, you have the people that are willing to acknowledge that Manny Pacquiao is not your everyday 40-year-old man. He is a true champion, a legend of the sport of boxing, who has consistently, over the course of his career, defeated legends and icons of the sport, not just defeating them, but oftentimes finishing them, has fought the who's who within his trade, has competed at a high level for over 20 years. He's been doing this since the 90s. So, again, I ask you guys, what reason did we have to doubt Manny Pacquiao? Okay, we'll go down the list of his career, the losses that he has suffered in his career. I can name 2 off the top of my head that were 2 of the worst decisions that I've ever seen in the sport of boxing. And those 2 fights featured Tim Bradley and Jeff Horn. 2 guys that had no business getting wins off of Manny Pacquiao. No business at all. None whatsoever. They did not deserve to have those distinctions. And especially in the case of Jeff Horn, but the Tim Bradley loss was shocking. Here you have a guy that's 62-7, 39 wins by knockout. He's fought 71 times in the ring. And, 7 losses. Jeff Horn, that was back in 2017. It was one of the most disgraceful losses I've ever seen. His last loss prior to that, okay. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. He fought Floyd Mayweather. In terms of boxing eras, whether it's Hagler, Hearns, Leonard Duran, LaMotta, Sugar Ray Robinson, Ali Frazier, Tyson, Lennox Lewis, Tyson, Holyfield. There's eras to the sport, and there's usually two guys that are always at the pinnacle of their division or at the pinnacle of the sport. There's always two stars that are carrying the torch. And for over a decade, number one was Floyd Mayweather. Number two was Manny Pacquiao. It took them forever to get into the ring and fight one another, but it did happen. It did happen May 2nd, 2015, and Manny Pacquiao lost that fight. Whether it was a snooze fest, whether my elbow slipped off the Dave & Buster's table while watching the fight due to the fact that I was falling asleep. True story, not even kidding there. They are the two best within their era. Floyd number one, Manny number two, okay. Manny lost to the best fighter of his era. That's okay. A lot of fighters have lost to the quote-unquote best fighter of their era. Someone's got to be the best. Floyd Mayweather of his era is the best. There's no doubt about that. Not really a Floyd fan for the other reasons that he, the way he portrays himself. I'm not really a fan of that, but he is the best of his era. Okay, so you go down another list. Back in 2012, December of 2012, Manny fights Juan Manuel Marquez for the fourth time due to the fact that he was not getting that fight with Floyd Mayweather. He was bored. There was a storyline there. They had a few close fights. It was the fourth fight against one another. And Juan Manuel Marquez knocked out Manny Pacquiao. But Juan Manuel Marquez discovered something at the age of 37 that I discovered at the age of 12. Puberty. Either Juan Manuel Marquez discovered puberty at the age of 37, or he was on anabolic steroids, or he was on performance-enhancing drugs, or he was on HGH, whatever you want to call it, testosterone replacement therapy, whatever you want to call it. Juan Manuel Marquez was a completely different version of himself in that fourth fight than he was in the third fight, than he was in the second fight, than he was in the first fight. So I'm not holding that against Manny Pacquiao. Juan Manuel Marquez hadn't knocked anyone out like that ever until he had fought Manny Pacquiao that night in that fight. And that was his last knockout victory of his career. That was the last one. After that was it. He was not a guy that was knocking anybody out at that late stage of his career. He fought Tim Bradley to a decision and fought Mike Alvarado in a title-winning performance in 2014. So he was out of the game. Juan Manuel Marquez was out of the game by the time Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao decided to finally fight each other. That matters. That matters because that proves to me that Juan Manuel Marquez was on something on that night in December of 2012 against Manny Pacquiao. He dipped his toes in the water and got out while he could. Didn't give Manny that opportunity for a fifth and final fight for a reason. For a reason. You're going to tell me that Juan Manuel Marquez made more money fighting Tim Bradley than he would have fighting Manny Pacquiao for the fifth time? Please. Stop it. Stop. So there's that. So we go back again to Manny Pacquiao's career and look at other losses throughout his career. Tim Bradley, as I said, one of the most disgusting decisions I've ever seen. He fought a very tough fighter back in 2005, Eric Morales, one of the toughest fighters, one of the most underrated fighters of his era, a true Mexican boxing warrior. I'll go with that one. Then you look at some of his fights in the early days. He was fighting at 125 pounds, fighting at 115 pounds, fighting at 112 pounds. This guy has gone up in weight so many times as he's grown older, as most fighters do, but he continues to beat guys that are bigger, stronger, faster than him. He is a complete anomaly a true boxing magician in that ring. And that's why that Floyd-Manny fight was so epic, because you knew that those were the two best fighters of their era, the two best fighters that were willing to duke it out, stand and trade, and create a great fight. Was it a great fight? No. There was a lot of strategy. There was a lot of tactical tendencies involved that made that fight very boring, made that fight not so fun. But the broad scheme of things, who's to say they shouldn't fight again? Who's to say they shouldn't fight right now? Who's to say that fight shouldn't be made right now? Who? Who can tell me that? Yeah, the first fight was boring. Trust me on that. Trust me on the fact that the first fight was boring. You do not have to go back and watch it. As I've said, I am a combat sports enthusiast. I'm a combat sports purist. I wanted to see the best fight the best. The two best were Floyd and Manny, and it took forever for them to fight. But who's to say that they should not fight again? The fight was a huge fight for boxing. It was the biggest pay-per-view of all time up until Mayweather-McGregor. They'll tell you that Mayweather-McGregor is number 2 in pay-per-view buys, but it is not. It's number 2 in North America. But in the world, Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor sold more pay-per-views than any fight in the history of the sport of boxing. Manny Pacquiao was on that side of things for 2 years, up until Mayweather fought McGregor. So I'd like to say that, maybe Floyd versus Manny 2 definitely would not generate as many buys as the Mayweather-McGregor fight. Probably wouldn't even generate as many buys as the original Mayweather-Pacquiao 1 fight. But it would probably be third in boxing history. It would probably pass Canelo versus Triple G 1 and 2. I could say that. Pretty confident in saying that. That fight has some luster now. You can't tell me after watching Manny Pacquiao fight Keith Thurman, you can't tell me that Mayweather and Pacquiao wouldn't be a good fight now. That discussion is out of sorts or out of turn or out of tune or whatever. You can't tell me that. I just watched Manny Pacquiao dominate a fighter bigger than him for 12 rounds. Now fighting Floyd Mayweather has a lot of different tactics that cause trouble for a fighter like Pacquiao, but I want to see them fight again. It's just that simple. I want to see it again. If Manny loses again, whatever. He can chalk it up that he's the best fighter of his era. Do I think Floyd Mayweather will fight Manny Pacquiao again? Hell no. Took him 7 years to fight him the first time. He's sure as hell not going to fight him again. And he fought him again after he was knocked out cold by a guy that was on steroids and Juan Manuel Marquez. Prior to that, Floyd wanted no part of Manny Pacquiao, and you can't tell me otherwise. You just can't. The proof is there. He fought Roberto Guerrero before he fought Manny Pacquiao. Come on. So, all this being said, I am calling right now, right here, right now, I am calling for Floyd Mayweather to sign, Floyd Mayweather Jr., to sign the bottom line of the contract and take on Manny Pacquiao one more time, one last fight. Do not, Floyd, do not go out of that boxing ring with your 50th win, 50-0, against a true MMA fighter. Don't do it. As great as that fight was, Mayweather-McGregor, as fun as that fight was, as great an ending as that was to Mayweather's career, I think it could be even greater if he were to fight Manny Pacquiao in his last professional boxing fight. Fight your true rival. And there are doubters out there still. There's people that look at Mayweather and Pacquiao in that first fight and say that it was such a boring fight that Mayweather didn't really beat Pacquiao. He outpointed Pacquiao. Prove the haters wrong, and yes, you would get $300 million, $250 million, $200 million. I'm pretty sure he got around 300 to fight Conor McGregor. Who's to say he shouldn't get 300 more? Who's to say that? So that's my take on it. I think that now that Manny Pacquiao fought and defeated Keith Thurman the way he did, The Mayweather-McGregor fight was great, but the Mayweather-Pacquiao 2 fight could be even greater. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take. Thanks for tuning in. Follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. Follow me on Spotify, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, as well. Subscribe to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on Apple Podcasts. Take care, everybody.